I've got a collection of some fairly recent stories about this weird area where I live. Be me, moved some while ago to this area in the outskirts of Sydney. Historically significant area, quite rough but getting gentrified. Live up a hill from the thick of it. Hear gunshots from down the hill from time to time, but it's dead quiet in the section I myself live in. Emphasis on dead quiet. There are no less than 4 separate cemeteries on the path downhill to the station. Poor friend. So I have to walk this route to get to the station if I want to go anywhere. Weird shit happens nearly every time I walk this route at night. Amusingly, never anything criminal or life-threatening though. The only time kids have tried to rob me, they deem me too poor and scattered. A number of weird things have happened in this area, but for the time being, I'll focus on just the weird shit on the main road up the hill, the first of which. Late 2022, walking home after a night with the lads. In a terrible mood and can't really tell why. Pitch black night, kinda unusual for my area, not much light pollution, and sprinkling down a tiny bit of rain. Walk past the biggest cemetery, around the halfway point of my walk. As I approach a streetlight, fizzle and blink, it turns off. Not a huge deal, as passing cars illuminate the path well enough. The next streetlight, fizzle and blink, again as I pass. Okay, what the fuck? And the first streetlight has turned back on. Third streetlight, fizzle and blink. Second streetlight, back on. Until the next block, this Mexican wave of streetlights dying keeps fucking happening, fouling my mood some more. Aside from the rain and my scowl, the next third of the journey is unremarkable. Get near the top, close to my house, see a black cat hanging around. Ain't no superstitious bitch, desperate for company, so knowing I'm good with animals generally speaking, I crouch down and beckon. Look at me with eyes wide open, bolt upright. Fleas. Tell a friend. She tells me, "You've become the avatar of death tonight." Ha ha ha, very funny. Skipping ahead to this week, driving down the hill with my mother, we noticed the streetlights have been upgraded with extra floodlights shining into the cemetery. Probably to catch the local goths fucking in there. Important part is that they work. Right? Few days later, Valentine's Day. Have a really shitty day with my friends, in a sour mood again. It's spitting down rain again and it's past midnight. Get up to ye old cemetery again, and what do you fucking know? All those brand new streetlights went out again. This time, all at once. Whole crest of hill is blanketed in night. Pic related, a photo I took when it happened. Rumble internally. Send another friend a message about it. He jokes, "Are you about to get abducted?" For comedic effect, I do not reply for a bit. Keep walking. Just at the edge of the death swath of streetlights, I see another cat. Orange this time, not the black one, and about 1.5 kilometers away from the previous cat. Sure, that doesn't seem too weird. Again, I'm in a bad mood and wanting some companionship. Approach the cat, mildly concerned about why it's wandering around someone's driveway in the rain in the dead of the night. Side note, can you imagine living across the road from a cemetery, let alone where the lights ominously die just like its inhabitants when you approach? Approach cat. In the low light, I hadn't realized from long range that it was weirdly lumpy. Get closer. Cannot for the life of me tell me if it's looking at me, side on, or if it's just looking away from me. Think I can see its face staring at me. No, just its weird lumpy fur on the side of its head. The shadows it casts look kinda like a face. This is concerning as fuck, but whatever, I'm just being paranoid. Notice it's hobbling in a very ungainly manner. Looks almost injured, like the hip was shattered. One haunch was higher than the other. Weird ass cat. I'm now more concerned for the cat more than anything. If it's injured, wandering and caught in the rain, I want to help it. Cat does not seem to give a shit about me no matter how much I pss for it. Even clapping doesn't do so much as make it flinch. A bit disturbed that it hasn't noticed me yet despite how close I'm getting. Have stepped onto the property now. Oh shit, what the fuck? Think for a brief second I saw black gaping pits where its eyes should be. False alarm. It was just a poor lighting. It has eyes. Wait, what the shit? Its eyes are wide open, unblinking, emotionless. Eyes don't even so much as refocus when I cross its line of sight. It doesn't react to my existence at all. Watch as it hobbles face first into a wall with open eyes. Bounce off it, rinse and repeat. The body flinches. The eyes don't even blink when it happens. Not a sound from the cat's mouth. Have been watching this for a while. Trying to get in its way, catch its gaze, make enough noise to attract it. Anything to snap it out of this bizarre state. It seems to only faintly register something when I clap again. Maybe it's almost deaf, and maybe it's blind. Eyes don't look blind though, so I don't know. Anyway, it started walking towards me, so I take a chance, crouch down, and hope it doesn't attack me. It walks right into my leg, bounces off it again, once again, with the fucked up open eyes. Try to pat it. Body lacks heat, it's as hard as a rock, and as lumpy as it looks. meaning that's not matted fur causing the weird shapes. It reacts to my touch as if it were an obstacle or an attacker, not a hand. Split second later, it resets to abnormal. It didn't run for the hills like the other cat, just kept staggering, face first into another obstacle, like nothing happened. More than a bit alarmed by this, but even more alarmed by it trying to walk to the road. If it's deaf and blind, it won't stand a chance. Blocked its path, herd it into some guy's fenced yard, close it off. It continues to hobble around there, but seems to be familiar territory, has stopped to smell something. Looks like it's cheered up. Briefly speculate about if it'll survive the night in this state, given it's unseasonably cold, raining and without shelter, and already seems to lack body heat. Surmise that it's up to the cat now. At least I've stopped it from unfairly eating a car wheel, if it didn't already do so given the injuries. Stagger off into the night, suddenly feeling sick and drained, generally just horrified by this uncanny cat. How it seemed like a wayward soul or a corpse that hadn't realized it was dead. Not even completely sure I saw it smelling something in the yard really, it was too far away. I was just being hopeful. Dragged myself the rest of the way home without incident though. I still feel weak and like I could collapse from shock and revulsion at any stage, and nearly do several times up the rest of the hill. Tell yet another mate about it a few days later. He tells me he probably would have noped out and confided with his dad or brother about what happened. Certainly not spend nearly half an hour doing as I did. My own family still don't know I had this strange experience. They'd probably think I was crazy from the moment the brand new streetlights went out around me. And then, 2 days later, yesterday for me, walking up the same road after having to go to the city to talk about a project I'm working on. Broad daylight this time, so no streetlight shenanigans. Walk past the house with the cockatoo perched at the letterbox staring at me. Stop, turn to take a picture of the handsome lad standing so tall for me. Realize the roof is covered in pigeons, and they all took flight as soon as I started taking pictures. Pic related. Some real birdemic shit. Cockatoo doesn't move, so I keep getting these badass pictures. Feel like I'm about to get swooped, so I hold my ground so they can fly past. Weird enough, can't hear they're all landing behind me. Cockatoo's giving me a positively zonked stare. Still does not move despite all the birds flying past us. Fair enough, neither have I. Shoot some photos over my shoulder at the birds I can hear. Pic related. They've all landed behind me. Slowly turn around to face them. They all stare at me, bug-eyed and gobsmacked, and shuffle as a group around to my right, the same way I'm turning. Past 90 degrees of rotation, they all take to the air again, fly right back up to the roof, visibly looking over their avian shoulders at me as they flew by. Awe is returned to as it was. The cockatoo is still staring. No recourse left. I give an exaggerated shrug, throw back my head with a cackle, and I ask the cockatoo, now what was all that about? He just keeps looking at me and blinks. A fair response to a crazy guy who talks to animals. Utterly chuffed by this ridiculous event, and soon after the weird encounter with the cat. This was a short way up from the road there too. I saunter back home to tell everyone about it. Now for some briefer stories / anecdotes about this area. They're probably a bit spookier, but generally a bit less weird. First moved in after some bratty old lady shipped off to a nursing home, vacating the house. The first thing I felt about this place was that it was weirdly hostile and oppressive, as if there were invisible faces hanging in the air around me, scowling hard. She left behind a gollywag. You've seen one before, look it up, which I gifted to my black best friend as a terrible joke. He thought it was hilarious too, kept lynching her around his house. His brother didn't see what was causing the doll to keep moving and wind up in such ominous positions, so he assumed she's possessed by the soul of some black lady who got lynched. He promptly shoves the gollywag in a shoebox and hides her under a bed, never to be seen again. House feels less hostile but still freaky after this. The place has lightened up a bit since we started introducing our own pot plants amongst the old lady's plants. While planting our stuff in the garden beds, find some old urns. Oh shit, wild. I thought it felt like something had died here. Still can't shake the feeling that that's not everything. Something really upsets me and unnerves me about the hatch to the subfloor. Subfloor area is damp and mold has grown on it like grass. If there are any skeletons or estranged husbands, I can't see them. Bedroom is right above the subfloor entrance. Boasts the number of holes into it that keeps letting critters in. Have woken up with dead cockroaches in my bed or to ants biting me. At one point I swear I hallucinated a ball of white light with a screaming face streaked past outside. One night, completely worked up about the howling wind, I feel a number of cold skeletal hands reaching up from below and gripping my chest as I was about to drift off. The only thing more prodigious than the pace at which dead birds, especially baby chicks, often still in their reeking, rotting eggs, appear in my yard is the rate at which they disappear without a trace. Every last one disappeared. One time, I saw the gigantic local raven eating a small bird on a distant rooftop. Maybe that's where they all went? No clue how it found some of those bodies though, cause I hid them and didn't see it land in the yard at all. One night a few months ago, was up late with a visiting friend. Had been talking for some time, so we stepped outside for fresh air. Fog had rolled in. The air was heavy, musty and humid. Smell of blood and rot filled the air. Like every grave was dug up. Both knelt out and returned indoors. Pristine, dry, cold air just a few minutes later. Friend confirms to me that neither of us were imagining things. We really did just smell what we smelled, and it really did just up and disappear together with the fog. Another friend likes to joke about how eerie and uncomfortable it is around here, remarking about how there's no sense of human life beyond me and my family. Says we're alone out here, and all the houses are just a front. Former friend tells me she's heard rumors of a cryptid in my area, though in her typical sarcastic fashion remarks that it was probably just some fucked up overgrown cat. Before we both bantered about if I or her might have been a real cryptid. Tried to spend a date out of cryptid hunting, but things fell apart numerous times before that could happen. Said former friend was a classmate of mine who I bumped into a train about 60 kilometers from uni, after having just seen a deer from a train window for the first time in my life. All my friends joked that she was a skinwalker because of this strange coincidence so far out, and since none of us had seen a deer in the area before, every now and then hear the strange distant whooshing / roaring around from a vortex in the sky. Has happened a couple times now, too big and low to be a plane. Barely any planes out here anyway, no main roads nearby, certainly not a car engine, and the only river is well out of earshot. Grandma has stayed over and remarked during the night about UFOs, and lo and behold, there have indeed been some fucking weird, asymmetrically lift craft quietly zipping around the night sky at crazy speeds. Hordes of bats migrate across the sky every night, because of course they do. And finally, heaps of creatures migrate through the walls of this house at night. Have had rats, possums, have even seen large spiders the size of my hand, or different types of scuttling around in formation that hunt the plagues of cockroaches together. Even had frogs get into my room on Halloween. Found cannibal snails. Continued for the last time. Also that there is a somewhat legendary local ghost story. Slipped my mind till now. Have had no encounters with anything I'd call a ghost. But even in the modern era, people still claim to have seen Fisher's ghost, a story you can look up yourselves since I was never particularly interested by it. One of the 4 local cemeteries is marked as the Pioneer Cemetery and houses the remains of the so-called first farmer in colonial Australian history, and so on and so forth. I could keep updating this thread with every slightly conky thing I've ever seen around here, like the mildly terrifying sculpture of a gray-faced lady in a broad-brimmed hat ominously lit at night, or I could document the plants with seed pods that drip some mucus goop when it rains, or the fact that the main road in the town below is full of old geezers who watch you across the street, or indeed all the ancient, ghastly, decrepit old men who have tried to get me to acknowledge them at the train station. But clearly this is more than running its course. The fundamental point I gotta convey, which I hope all these tales of weird events have succeeded in doing for me, is that this is one weird and fucked up place. Taken individually, some of these events are totally commonplace, or evidently the product of a paranoid mind with little company to check its perspectives against. Taken all together, however, it demonstrates what a profoundly fucking weird place this is to live in, and how uncanny, abnormal, and oftentimes plain horrifying shit has kinda become the norm around here. It could be scarier, it could be overt, it could be more dangerous, but all in all, it's a place that baffles me and unnerves me. I have more stories about even weirder events and places I've lived, but for the time being, I'm gonna leave it and call it a night. I hope you all enjoyed the read, and I hope the pictures, when relevant, have helped demonstrate